At the turn of the year, a young woman decides to abandon a secret love that humiliates her in silence. In love with a distant count, she chooses to start the new cycle without illusions. But an unexpected night places her before him in a scandalous and out-of-control situation. And what seemed like the end of everything ends up awakening an interest that completely changes her destiny. If you like love and romance stories, watch until the end and you won't regret it. Subscribe to this channel and leave your comment saying where you are listening to this beautiful story from. We continue. Santa Helena Farm was unrecognizable that New Year's Eve. Golden lights reflected in crystal glasses, French champagne flowed freely among the guests, and the orchestra hired especially for the occasion played soft music while dozens of people circulated through the halls decorated with white flowers and sophisticated arrangements. It was the kind of celebration that only the most traditional families from the countryside of São Paulo could organize, those who accumulated generations of power, extensive lands and surnames that opened doors in any corner of the country. Helena Mendes observed all of this with a mixture of familiarity and discomfort. She had known that world since she was a child, knew exactly how to behave, what to say, and how to smile just the right amount. But on that specific night, every smile she gave seemed to weigh more than it should. She was there because her family had always been there. The Mendes family were not owners of empires like the hosts, the powerful Albuquerques, but they had history, a refined education, and guaranteed passage among the elite. Helena's father was a renowned lawyer. Her mother came from a traditional family of farmers from the south of Minas. She herself was a graduate in architecture, spoke 3 languages fluently, and had played the piano since she was 7. At 28, she was considered an excellent match. Beautiful, cultured, intelligent, all the qualities that should have made her a sought-after bride. And yet there she was, alone, watching couples dance while pretending interest in empty conversations about international travel and real estate investments. The true reason for her restlessness was on the other side of the hall. Rafael Albuquerque Sampaio, heir to the business group that controlled ethanol plants, extensive sugarcane plantations, and a diversified portfolio of businesses ranging from agribusiness to the financial sector. He was 36 years old, a graduate in economics from FGV, had done an MBA in London, and had taken command of the family business at 30 when his father decided to partially retire. Rafael was the type of man who didn't need to try to be noticed. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair always impeccably combed, he had that posture of someone who was born knowing the world was at his feet. He wore a tailored navy blue suit, and Helena knew exactly how much a piece like that cost because she had already accompanied friends on shopping trips to luxury stores. But it wasn't the money that fascinated her, not even his appearance, although she admitted he was absurdly attractive. What had consumed her for almost 5 years was something much more dangerous. The way he talked about business with genuine passion, the seriousness with which he treated commitments, the loyalty he showed to the company's long-time employees, the way he read compulsively about economics and politics. Helena had discovered all of this little by little at dinners, charity events, and family parties. They had never talked beyond formal greetings and superficial comments about the weather or the decoration, but she observed him. And the more she observed, the more she became entangled in that silent and absolutely humiliating passion. Because Raphael had never truly seen her, he greeted everyone with the same polite courtesy, smiled when necessary, and then returned his attention to conversations with businessmen or family. There were women who tried bolder approaches, who provoked him with suggestive glances, who found excuses to touch him during a dance. Helena had never done any of that. She always remained demure, always composed, watching from afar while feeling her chest tighten every time he entered a room. It was pathetic. She knew it. An intelligent, capable, interesting woman, wasting time on a man who barely knew she existed. That was why, at that turn of the year, Helena had made a decision. She would not start a new cycle carrying that ridiculous fantasy. It was already too late. She had already wasted too many years nurturing a feeling that would never find an answer. While toasting with her friends and smiling for the cameras, she repeated to herself that this would be the last time she would allow her heart to race when she saw him. The last time she would seek Raphael out with her eyes every time he entered a hall. The last time she would feel diminished for liking someone who didn't like her back. Midnight arrived with fireworks exploding over the farm fields, warm hugs and wishes for happiness. Helena hugged her parents, her siblings, and her friends. When it was time to greet Raphael, who was nearby due to the configuration of the groups, she extended her hand with a polite smile and said only, "Happy New Year," before moving away quickly. She wasn't going to look back. She wasn't going to feed anything else. It was over. What she didn't expect was that the night still held a twist. Around 1 in the morning, when some guests were already starting to leave, a heavy storm broke over the region. Lightning cut through the sky, rain fell violently, and the road leading to the main highway became completely flooded in a matter of minutes. The hosts, with the hospitality typical of traditional families, immediately offered the rooms of the main house to anyone who needed to spend the night. Helena tried to argue that they could wait for the rain to pass, but her mother, always practical, was already accepting the kindness and thanking the Albuquerques. That was how Helena found herself climbing the dark wooden stairs that led to the second floor of the farmhouse, carrying a small bag with basic items that the housekeeper had provided. The room they assigned her was beautiful, decorated with antique furniture, a canopy bed with embroidered white sheets, and a large window overlooking the gardens. She said, "Thank you," closed the door, and took a deep breath. At least she would be alone. She could process everything, calm the whirlwind of emotions, and actually start turning that page. She changed her party dress for a cotton nightgown that the housekeeper had left on the bed, hung up her jewelry, undid the elaborate hairstyle the hairdresser had created hours before, and let her brown hair fall loose over her shoulders. She washed her face, removing the carefully applied makeup, and finally lay down. The rain continued outside, beating hard against the windows, but there was something comforting in that sound. It was as if nature were washing everything away, preparing the ground for something new. She was almost falling asleep when she heard it. At first she thought it was her imagination, but then the sound repeated. Female laughter, muffled but unmistakable. It came from the wall next door, from the neighboring room. Helena frowned, sitting up in bed. Then came other noises, movements, murmurs. A low male voice, followed by more laughter. Helena's blood boiled instantly. This was the Albuquerque house, a respectable traditional family that had just opened its doors to dozens of guests, and someone, in one of the rooms, was behaving in a completely indecorous manner. The revolt she felt wasn't just moral. It was something deeper, more visceral. It was jealousy, because she knew, without needing to confirm, who was in that room. During dinner, Helena had heard conversations about the distribution of the rooms. Raphael was on the second floor, as were some other guests close to the family. The room next to hers. It had to be him. The image of Raphael with another woman there just a few meters away, while she tried to convince herself she was ready to forget him, was unbearable. Helena got out of bed, her heart beating erratically. It wasn't just anger. It was indignation. It was pain. It was the complete break of any composure she tried to maintain. She looked around the room, searching for something, anything. Her eyes landed on the silver candelabra decorating the dresser. She picked it up with both hands. She didn't even know for sure why she was doing it, but something in her had snapped. She wasn't going to stay there listening, suffering in silence. If she was going to start a new year, it would be with her head held high, saying what she thought, without fear of the consequences. She opened the bedroom door and stepped out into the hallway. She was barefoot, wearing only the cotton nightgown, her hair loose and unkempt. There was no one around. The whole house was silent, only the sound of the rain filling the air. Helena walked the few meters that separated her from the door next door, and before she could reconsider, knocked hard. 3 sharp, decisive knocks. There was a moment of absolute silence, then hurried footsteps. The door opened a few inches and a young woman appeared in the crack. Helena recognized her vaguely. Julia something, daughter of a tech entrepreneur. The girl's face was flushed, her eyes wide, visibly embarrassed. "Excuse me," was all Julia managed to murmur before hurrying away, practically running down the hallway toward the stairs. And then the door opened completely. Raphael Albuquerque was there, his dress shirt open at the top buttons, his hair slightly disheveled, his dark eyes fixed on her with an expression Helena couldn't immediately decipher. Surprise, certainly. But there was something more, curiosity, perhaps even a trace of amusement. Helena raised her chin, holding the candelabra more tightly than necessary. "What kind of behavior is this?" she snapped, her voice coming out firmer than she expected. "This is your family's home. There are guests in every room, and you think it's appropriate to disturb everyone's peace with this scandal." Raphael tilted his head, his eyes slowly scanning her figure. Helena felt too late the absurdity of the situation. She was standing there, barefoot, in a nightgown, hair loose, holding a candelabra, as if it were a weapon, confronting one of the most powerful men in the state. The humiliation should have made her retreat, run back to her room, and pray he would forget all of it by the next morning. But she didn't retreat. "Disturb?" Raphael repeated, his voice deep and calm. "I didn't imagine the sounds were audible. I apologize if I bothered you." He paused, and then a small, almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of his lips. "But I must say, it's the first time someone has come to confront me armed with a candelabra, especially while wearing a nightgown." Helena felt her cheeks burn, but instead of letting herself be intimidated, she took a step forward. "You think it's funny? You think you can do whatever you want because this is your house, your farm, your empire? There are rules of decency that apply to everyone, no matter how much money you have in your account." Raphael's expression changed. The smile vanished, and he looked at her with an intensity that made Helena tremble, though not from fear. "Rules of decency," he repeated slowly, as if savoring the words. Then he took a step toward her, slightly invading her personal space. "You are right, and I thank you for reminding me of that. I accept the reprimand." Helena blinked, disconcerted. Was he agreeing with her? That wasn't what she expected. She expected arrogance, perhaps a biting response, or simply for him to slam the door in her face. But not that. Not that penetrating gaze that seemed to see her in a completely new way. She took a step back, suddenly insecure. "I just thought someone needed to say it. And you said it. With admirable courage." Raphael crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe. "May I know your name? I know we've met at other events, but I confess we've never had a real conversation." Helena wanted to scream that she knew his name perfectly well, that she had been watching him for years, that she knew every detail about his life. But that would be giving away too much. "Helena Mendez," she replied simply. "Helena." He repeated the name as if testing how it sounded. "Thank you for the moral lecture, Helena. I promise to behave better from now on." She didn't know what to say. She nodded, still holding the ridiculous candelabra, and then turned to go back to her room. Her barefoot steps made no sound on the wooden floor. She reached her door, entered quickly, and locked herself inside, leaning against the wood as if she needed support. What had she just done? She had confronted Raphael Albuquerque in a nightgown in the middle of the night about a situation that, in the end, was none of her business. She had completely destroyed any chance of maintaining her dignity in that house. Tomorrow, when daylight came, everyone would know. The servants would tell, Julia would mention it to someone, and soon the story would be circulating among the families. Helena Mendez, the well-behaved girl, losing her composure and invading Raphael Albuquerque's room in the middle of the night. She set the candelabra down on the dresser and pressed her hands against her face. She wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. Only an overwhelming sense of shame and regret. This was supposed to be the night she turned the page, the night she left Raphael behind. And what had she done? She had created a scene that guaranteed he would never forget her, but for all the wrong reasons. On the other side of the wall, Raphael remained standing in the middle of his room, looking at the closed door with a thoughtful expression. Julia had only come to return a book he had lent her father weeks ago. They had talked about literature, laughed at some inside family jokes, nothing more. But he hadn't bothered to explain that to Helena, because, for the first time in years, something genuinely interesting had happened. He had spent his whole life surrounded by women who said exactly what they thought he wanted to hear, who smiled just the right amount, who agreed with his opinions, who dressed and behaved following a predictable script of seduction. Helena had done none of that. She had appeared there, disheveled, barefoot, dressed in the simplest way possible, and challenged him, without fear, without calculation, without strategy. Just pure emotion, genuine anger, impulsive courage. And Raphael realized, as he went back to close his bedroom door, that he couldn't stop thinking about her eyes flashing with indignation, about the way she had raised her chin, even though she was visibly out of her comfort zone, about the courage to say what she thought, even knowing the consequences. For the first time in a long time, Rafael Albuquerque Sampaio was truly intrigued by someone, and Helena Mendez, tucked away in the room next door, trying to control her breathing and process the disaster she had just created, had no idea that that moment of absolute humiliation would be the beginning of everything. Helena couldn't sleep properly. She kept tossing and turning in bed, replaying every second of that disastrous interaction, imagining what it would be like to face everyone in the morning. The rain finally let up around 5 in the morning, and when the first rays of sun began to filter through the curtains, she was already awake, staring at the ceiling with a mixture of exhaustion and apprehension. There was no escaping it. She would have to go down for breakfast, look people in the eye and pretend everything was normal, even knowing it probably wasn't. She got up, took a long shower in the attached bathroom, trying to wash away all the shame she felt with the water. She chose a simple but elegant outfit, a light blue linen dress that her mother always said enhanced her brown eyes. She tied her hair in a discreet bun, put on a bit of makeup to hide the dark circles, and finally took a deep breath in front of the mirror. "You are Helena Mendez," she whispered to herself. "You have degrees, you have intelligence, you have dignity. One night of insanity does not define who you are." She walked down the stairs with her head held high, prepared for the worst. The breakfast room was a wide, bright veranda overlooking the farm's gardens. Several tables were set with white tablecloths, fresh flowers, and an impressive variety of breads, fruits, cold cuts, cakes, and juices. Some guests were already there, talking animatedly about the previous night's storm and plans for the rest of the holiday. Helena greeted everyone politely, sat down next to her mother, and served herself some black coffee, even without an appetite. That was when she heard the unmistakable voice of Donna Beatriz Albuquerque, the family matriarch and host of the celebration. "My dears, I have news. My son Raphael has decided to extend his stay here at the farm for a few days. He has been working too hard in recent weeks and thought it would be good to take advantage of this start of the year to rest a bit." Helena almost dropped her cup. Raphael was staying for several days. The plan was for everyone to leave right after breakfast, now that the storm had passed and the road was being cleared. She felt her stomach churn. She would have to live with him, cross paths with him in the hallways, endure knowing looks from other guests who surely already knew about the incident in the middle of the night. As if summoned by her thoughts, Raphael entered the veranda at that moment. He wore a white linen shirt and beige twill pants, his hair still slightly damp from the shower. He looked rested, calm, completely at ease. He greeted his mother with a kiss on the forehead, waved to some friends, and then, to Helena's absolute horror, walked directly toward the table where she was sitting. "Good morning, Donna Marcia, Dr. Fernando," he said, addressing Helena's parents with impeccable courtesy. "I hope you rested well. The storm was violent, but at least now we have a beautiful day ahead." Helena's father, Fernando Mendez, replied with the typical cordiality of an experienced lawyer. Her mother, Marcia, smiled with that air of someone evaluating every detail, and then Raphael looked at Helena. "Good morning, Helena. Did you sleep well?" There was something in his tone, a slight irony that only she seemed to catch. Helena forced a smile. "Very well, thank you." "That's good." He held her gaze for a second longer than would be considered normal, and then walked away to sit at another table. Marcia waited for him to move away before leaning slightly toward her daughter. "He never greeted you before," she whispered. "Did something happen?" "Nothing, Mother," Helena replied too quickly. "Just politeness." But her heart was racing. What was Raphael doing? Why had he extended his stay? And why, instead of avoiding her or treating her coldly after the embarrassment of the previous night, did he seem interested? The answer began to take shape throughout the morning. After breakfast, some guests decided to take a walk through the gardens, enjoying the sunny day after the storm. Helena accompanied a group of friends, trying to blend in and avoid attention. That was when one of the farm's oldest employees, Donna Irene, approached discreetly. "Sorry to bother you, Miss Helena, but there was a small canned comment circulating among the house staff." Helena felt her blood run cold. "What kind of comment?" "About Miss Julia and Dr. Raphael. They say she left his room late at night." Donna Irene lowered her voice even more. "But Dr. Raphael already cleared everything up this morning. He called some of us and explained that the young lady only returned a book and they stayed talking for a few minutes, nothing improper. He was very clear about that and asked that there be no gossip." Helena blinked, processing the information. Raphael had taken the trouble to clarify the situation, to protect Julia's reputation, and, consequently, to prevent malicious rumors from spreading about what Helena had witnessed. "I see. Thank you for telling me, Donna Irene." The woman nodded and walked away. Helena stood there, staring at the gardens without really seeing anything. Why would he do that? He gained nothing by protecting Julia. Unless... thinking about something specific or just admiring the flowers? Helena spun on her heels and found Raphael standing a few meters away, hands in his pockets, a calm expression on his face. They were far enough from the others to have privacy, but still in everyone's sight, which made the situation socially acceptable. "Just enjoying the day," Helena replied, trying to sound casual. Raphael took a few steps toward her. "I was thinking about our conversation last night." "Oh no, here it comes." He was going to humiliate her, make a joke, or worse, confront her about the invasion of privacy. "And I came to the conclusion," he continued, "that you are right. It was a lack of consideration on my part. I should have been more careful." Helena stared at him, confused. "You are apologizing?" "I am." He tilted his head slightly. "And I would also like to ask for something else." "What?" "Permission to get to know you better." Helena felt as if the floor had disappeared from under her feet. "Excuse me?" Raphael smiled, and it was a genuine smile without a trace of mockery. "I would like to talk to you, spend some time together while I'm here. Of course, if that is of interest to you and with your parents' permission." I don't understand." Helena was completely lost. "Why?" "Because you intrigued me." The answer was direct, without beating around the bush. "I spend most of my time surrounded by people who say what they think I want to hear. You were different. You were authentic. And I would like to know more about who Helena Mendez is, beyond the brave woman who confronted me in the middle of the night, wielding a candelabra." Helena felt her cheeks burn, but this time it wasn't just shame. It was something more complex, confusion, hope, distrust. "You barely know me." "Exactly. That's why I'm asking for the opportunity to know." He took another step. "What do you say? Will you take a walk with me this afternoon? There's a beautiful trail that leads to the creek at the back of the property." Helena should say no. She should protect herself, keep her distance, remember that this made no sense. But the truth was that, after 5 years of watching that man from afar, the prospect of finally having a real conversation with him was too irresistible to refuse. "I'll ask my parents," she heard her own voice reply. "Great. I already spoke with your father earlier. He authorized it, provided you agree." So he had already gone ahead. He had already planned everything. Helena didn't know if that bothered her or impressed her. "Then I accept," she said finally. Raphael's smile widened. 3 in the afternoon, then. I'll meet you here in the gardens." He gave a slight bow, almost old-fashioned but somehow charming, and walked away. Helena stood there, trying to process what had just happened. Rafael Albuquerque Sampaio had formally asked to court her. The man she had loved in silence for years, who had never given a sign of noticing her, now wanted to get to know her. She went back inside the house in a state of controlled shock, found her mother in the library and told her everything. Marcia listened intently, her eyes shining with that mixture of joy and caution that mothers usually have. "He seems serious," Marcia said carefully. "Your father was impressed by the formality of the request. Raphael was very respectful, making it clear he wouldn't do anything without our permission." "But why so suddenly? He never showed interest before." "Sometimes people need a push to see what has been in front of them for a long time." Marcia touched her daughter's face affectionately. "Maybe you were that push. Just don't rush, my daughter. Get to know him for real. See if there is substance behind the interest." Helena nodded. She was right. She couldn't just throw herself head first into this just because it was what she had always wanted. She needed to find out if Raphael was truly sincere or if this was just a passing whim of a bored man. At 3 in the afternoon, she went down wearing a light printed cotton dress, comfortable walking shoes and her hair loose falling over her shoulders. Raphael was already waiting, and when he saw her, his eyes lit up in a way that made Helena's heart leap. They walked side by side through the gardens and then entered a trail that cut through a small woods on the property. At first, they talked about trivial things, the weather, the farm, the plans for the new year. But gradually, as they moved further from the house and their privacy increased, the conversation became deeper. "Can I ask a personal question?" Raphael said as they walked along the creek. "You can. Why did you come to confront me last night? Most people would have just ignored it or commented to someone in the morning, but you knocked on my door in the middle of the night." Helena thought about lying, about giving a diplomatic answer. But if she was going to start something with him, let it be with honesty. "Because it bothered me. The idea that you were with someone. There, so close. It bothered me in a way I can't rationally explain." Raphael stopped walking and faced her. "Jealousy? Perhaps," she admitted, raising her chin. "But also genuine indignation. I really thought it was inappropriate. And if I told you nothing improper was happening, that Julia was only returning a book and we stayed talking about literature, I would believe it, especially after you cleared everything up this morning to protect her reputation." "Wow!" Raphael seemed genuinely surprised. "You found out quickly." "Donna Irene told me." He laughed, and it was a pleasant, sincere sound. "There are no secrets on farms. The employees know everything before the owners themselves." "Why did you do that? Why did you take the trouble to clarify?" Raphael became serious. "Because it was the right thing to do and because I didn't want you to think badly of me." "Why would you care what I think?" "Because—" He hesitated, and Helena realized it was rare to see him at a loss for words. "Because last night when you appeared there, disheveled, barefoot, angry, without caring what I was going to think or say, I saw something I haven't seen in a long time. Truth, real emotion, not social performance. And that hit me in a way I didn't expect." Helena felt her chest tighten. "You spent years without noticing me. In all those dinners, events, parties, I was invisible to you." "You weren't invisible. I saw you. I saw a beautiful, educated woman, always impeccably behaved, but I was used to that. Women who present themselves exactly as society expects them to. I never truly connected with anyone because it always seemed too superficial. And now it's different? Now I want to know the woman who had the courage to confront me, the woman who isn't trying to impress or please me, the real Helena, not the social version of her." Helena stopped in front of him and for the first time allowed herself to truly look at him without hiding. "You might not like what you find. I have strong opinions. I am not docile. I won't agree with everything you say just because you are rich or powerful." Raphael's eyes sparkled. "Excellent. I don't want a docile woman. I want a partner." "A partner?" Helena repeated, testing the word. "And what exactly do you expect from a partnership?" "Real conversations, debates. Someone who challenges me, who makes me think. Someone who is whole, complete, fascinating." Helena felt something break inside her. All the barriers she had tried to build on that New Year's Eve, all the determination to forget him, everything crumbled before that conversation, because that was exactly what she had always wanted. To be seen, to be valued for who she truly was, not for the polished version she showed the world. "Then show me who you are too," she said. "Not the heir, not the businessman, Raphael the person." And so it began. In the following days, while other guests left and the farm returned to its normal rhythm, Helena and Raphael spent hours together. They walked, talked, debated about everything: politics, economics, art, literature. She discovered he read avidly, that he had strong opinions on sustainable development, and that he felt an enormous weight carrying the family legacy. He discovered she was passionate about Brazilian modernist architecture, that she played Chopin when she was sad, and that she dreamed of designing affordable housing for low-income families. And between the conversations, something else grew. A look that lasted longer than it should. Hands that touched accidentally during a walk. The tension that lingered in the air when they were alone. Helena felt she was falling even deeper, but this time, it wasn't a one-sided, silent love. It was reciprocated. real, terrifying in its intensity. But not everything was simple. There were moments when Raphael withdrew emotionally, as if fighting something internal. And Helena realized that as much as they were connecting, there were still layers to be revealed. Secrets, fears, scars that both carried and would have to face if they wanted to build something true together. The week at the farm turned into 10 days, and Helena knew they would soon have to return to São Paulo, to real life, to the commitments and responsibilities that awaited them. Raphael needed to resume command of the company. She had architectural projects waiting on her desk. But neither seemed in a hurry. It was as if those days were a bubble suspended in time, a space where they could explore what was being born between them without external pressures. One night after dinner, Raphael invited her to see the stars from the lookout point that had been built at the highest point of the property. They climbed the trail lit only by the flashlight he carried, and when they reached the top, Helena was breathless. The sky was clear, filled with constellations shining intensely away from the light pollution of the city. "It's beautiful," she whispered, sitting on the wooden bench there. Raphael sat next to her, so close their shoulders touched. "I used to come here when I was a teenager. Whenever the family pressure got too heavy, when my father demanded I be perfect in everything, I would run away to here." "And do you still run away?" Helena asked softly. "I don't need to anymore. I learned to deal with the expectations. But I still like to come here to think," he looked at her. "And now I have an even better reason." Helena felt her heart race. "Raphael, I know this is all happening fast," he interrupted, "but I can't deny what I'm feeling. You turned my world upside down, Helena, and the worst part is that I didn't even realize that was what I needed until you appeared in the hallway with that ridiculous candelabra." She laughed despite the tension in the air. "I still can't believe I did that. I thank every day that you did." He raised his hand and touched her face gently, his fingers tracing her jawline. "Can I kiss you?" The question caught her by surprise. She expected him to simply take the initiative as men usually did, but he was asking permission, waiting for her to agree. "Yes," Helena whispered. The kiss was slow, careful at first, as if Raphael were testing, discovering. But when Helena responded, interlacing her fingers in his hair, something broke. The kiss deepened, became more urgent, more intense. Years of silent observation, days of growing tension, everything culminated in that moment under the stars. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "My God," Raphael murmured, resting his forehead against hers. "I am completely lost." "Me too," Helena admitted, and it was the purest truth she had ever spoken. But reality began to impose itself when they returned to São Paulo. Raphael had endless meetings, trips scheduled to Ribeirão Preto and Campinas to visit the plants, social commitments he couldn't cancel. Helena resumed the projects she had left pending, diving into work, trying to make up for lost time. Still, they found ways to see each other. Discreet dinners in remote restaurants, walks in Ibirapuera on Sundays, messages exchanged late at night when both were still awake working. It was during one of these dinners, at an Italian restaurant in Jardins, that Helena met Augusto Sampaio, Raphael's older brother. Tall, also handsome, but with a coldness in his gaze that Raphael didn't have, Augusto arrived unannounced and sat at the table with them. "So this is the famous Helena," he said, his tone polite but with a trace of irony. "My brother talks of nothing else." Raphael tensed immediately. "Augusto, what a surprise! I thought I should meet the woman who is occupying so much of our future CEO's attention." Augusto turned to Helena with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're an architect, right? My brother told me." "I am," Helena replied, feeling the tension at the table. "Interesting, and what do your parents do?" The question was seemingly innocent, but Helena sensed the trap. "My father is a lawyer. My mother manages rural properties she inherited from her family." So you come from a good family. That's important." Augusto picked up the menu as if the conversation were casual, especially considering that Raphael will eventually have to think about marriage, children, succession. The Albuquerque Group isn't just a company, it's a legacy. And whoever marries him will be taking on enormous responsibilities. "Augusto, that's enough." Raphael's voice was low, controlled, but there was steel in it. "I'm just being realistic, brother. Dad might have retired, but he still has strong opinions about who should be at your side, and the whole family will want to meet her, evaluate her, ensure you're making the right choice." Helena felt anger rise. "With all due respect, Augusto, I am not a product being evaluated for purchase. If Raphael and I decide to move forward with what we have, it will be our decision, not his family's." Augusto arched his eyebrows, clearly surprised by the direct response. Raphael, on the other hand, had a half-smile on his lips, as if he were proud. "I see she has personality," Augusto observed. "That's going to be interesting." He stood up. "Well, I just came to meet you. Enjoy your dinner." And he left as abruptly as he had arrived. Helena looked at Raphael. "I'm sorry if I was rude." "You weren't. You were perfect." He took her hand over the table. "My brother is used to intimidating people, but you didn't let yourself be intimidated. He was testing whether I'm suitable for you. And you made it clear you don't care about his opinion." Raphael squeezed her hand. "My family can be complicated, Helena. There are expectations, pressures, power games. My father built an empire and wants to ensure it survives for generations. Augusto was always jealous because I was chosen to lead, not him. My mother is more open, but even she has rigid standards about who should be part of the family. And you think I don't meet those standards. I think you exceed them, but not in the way they expect, and that can generate conflict." Helena withdrew her hand gently. "So you're warning me this is going to be difficult?" "I'm warning you that it's going to be worth fighting for if you want to." His eyes were intense. "Because I want to, Helena. I want you, I want this, regardless of what my family or anyone else says." She believed him. But the meeting with Augusto planted a seed of concern. Raphael came from a world where personal decisions were never just personal. There was always the weight of the surname, the empire, the expectations of generations. And Helena began to wonder if she was prepared to face all of that. The following weeks brought more tests. Formal dinners where Helena was introduced to uncles, cousins, business partners. Everyone treated her with courtesy, but she felt the evaluating looks, the subtle questions about her education, her family, her future plans. Donna Beatriz, Raphael's mother, was particularly meticulous. She invited Helena for tea at her penthouse in Jardins and spent 3 hours asking seemingly casual questions that were, in fact, a complete interrogation. "Do you intend to continue working after you're married?" Beatriz asked at one point. Helena almost choked on her tea. Married? She and Raphael hadn't even formally discussed marriage. "I do, yes, my career is important to me." "I see," Beatriz nodded slowly. "And children, do you plan to have children?" "Eventually, yes. But those are conversations Raphael and I still have to have." Of course. Beatriz took a sip of her own tea. "It's just that women in our position have certain responsibilities. Charity events, social work, representing the family on social occasions. It's a full-time job. With all due respect, Donna Beatriz, I am not in your position. I am an architect. I have my own career, my own identity. If I marry Raphael, I won't stop being who I am." Beatriz was silent for a long moment, and Helena prepared to be dismissed. But then, surprisingly, the woman smiled. "You have backbone. That's good. Raphael needs someone strong at his side, not a decorative doll." "So, you approve?" "I approve of you being authentic. I'm still going to watch you, of course. My son is the most precious thing I have, and I won't allow anyone to hurt him or use him for interest. But so far, you seem genuine." Helena left that meeting emotionally exhausted. She was beginning to understand the price Raphael paid for carrying that surname. Every move was observed, every choice questioned, every relationship analyzed through the lens of the consequences for the family and the business. When she told Raphael everything that night during a phone call, he sighed heavily. "I'm sorry you're going through this." "Don't apologize, just tell me it's worth it." "It is," he replied without hesitation. "Every second with you is worth every challenge we have to face." But the real challenge was yet to come. A week later, during a company board meeting, Raphael faced a crisis. One of the directors, a man trusted by his father, publicly questioned his leadership, suggesting he was too distracted by personal matters to focus on what really mattered. It was a veiled attack, but everyone in the room understood. They were implying that his relationship with Helena was affecting his performance. Raphael left the meeting furious and went straight to Helena's apartment. She opened the door and found him visibly shaken. "They're using you against me," was the first thing he said, "saying I'm compromising the company because of a romance." Helena felt her stomach sink. "And what did you say?" "That my personal life is none of their business. But this isn't going to stop. They'll keep pushing, questioning, trying to make me choose between the company and you." "And if you have to choose?" The question came out before she could stop it. Raphael stared at her. "I won't have to choose because I won't let them force me into it." "Raphael," Helena touched his face, "I know how much the company means to you. It's your family's legacy. It's everything you've worked to build. I can't be the reason you lose that." "You're not the reason, they are." He held her face with both hands. "And I won't let them win. I'll prove I can have both, you and the company, a healthy relationship and strong leadership. They aren't mutually exclusive things." Helena wanted to believe him, but for the first time since they had started, she felt real fear. Not of Raphael, but of the world around him, of the pressures, the expectations, the power games she was only beginning to understand. "Promise me one thing," she said. "Promise me that if it reaches a point where this is destroying you, where you have to sacrifice too much, you'll be honest with me. I won't let you lose yourself because of me." "And I promise," he replied, "that I won't let anyone separate us. Not the family, not the company, not anyone. Because you, Helena Mendez, are the best thing that ever happened to me. And I won't give up on you without fighting with everything I have." They kissed, and it was different this time. It wasn't just desire or passion. It was a promise, a commitment to face whatever came ahead together. But both knew, even without saying it out loud, that the true test was still to come. And when it came, it would test not just their love, but the strength of character of both. The test came from a direction neither of them expected. 3 months after the New Year's Eve that changed everything, when Helena and Raphael were already completely intertwined in each other's lives, when she already knew the secret corners of his soul, and he already knew exactly how to make her laugh even on the hardest days, an article was published in a major business magazine. The title was sensationalist: "The Heir in Love, Raphael Albuquerque Between Empire and Romance." The report was accompanied by photos of the two together at events, dinners, even a stolen image of them walking hand in hand in Ibirapuera. The text was a mix of facts and speculation. It talked about Raphael's leadership in the company, about the challenges he faced to modernize the group while maintaining traditions, about the pressure from the family. And then it dove into the relationship with Helena, questioning if a serious romance could affect his ability to make difficult business decisions. There were interviews with sources close to the family that raised doubts about Helena's suitability for the role of the wife of a CEO of such importance. Helena read the article sitting in the architecture office she shared with 2 partners and felt nausea rise. It wasn't just the invasion of privacy that bothered her. It was the way they reduced everything to a simplistic narrative, as if she were just a distraction, an obstacle between Raphael and his true destiny, as if their love had no real value. The phone rang. It was Raphael. "Have you seen it yet?" he asked, his voice tense. "I just read it." "Helena, I'm so sorry. I don't know who leaked information to them, but I'll find out." "It doesn't matter who it was," Helena said, feeling her anger grow. "It matters that this is real. People really think this, that I am a problem for you." "You are not a problem. You are the solution." His voice was firm. "These people don't know us. They don't know what we have. But they have the power to affect us, to affect you." Helena closed her eyes. "Raphael, maybe they're right. Maybe you need someone who is already part of this world, who understands the rules, who knows how to deal with all of this." "Stop that." Now there was anger in his voice, but not directed at her. "I won't let a magazine article destroy us. Will you meet me tonight, at our place?" Our Place was a small Japanese restaurant, hidden on a quiet street in Villa Maddalena, where they had dined for the first time after returning from the farm, where Raphael had held her hand over the table and said he wanted to try something serious, something real. "At 8, she agreed, but before she could leave the office, the phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. Helena hesitated but answered. "Hello?" "Helena Mendez." The voice was female, young, nervous. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Camila Ferreira. I need to talk to you. It's about Raphael." Helena's heart raced. What about him? I can't talk over the phone. Can we meet? It's important. I know things you should know before you get deeper into this with him. Every instinct in Helena screamed to hang up, not to fall into traps or games, but curiosity, fear, the need to know the truth were stronger. Where? They agreed on a cafe on Paulista Avenue, a midpoint between Helena's office and the address Camilla provided. When Helena arrived, she found a woman of approximately 30 years old, blonde, beautiful, dressed in expensive clothes. There was something familiar about her, but Helena couldn't identify what. "Thank you for coming," Camilla said, her hands trembling slightly as she held her coffee cup. "I know this is strange, but I needed to warn you." "Warn me about what?" Camilla took a deep breath. "Raphael and I had a relationship 5 years ago. It lasted almost 2 years, actually. It was serious, or at least I thought it was. I met his family, he met mine. We talked about marriage." Helena felt the world shake. And what happened? He ended it. Out of nowhere. He said he wasn't ready for commitment, that he realized we weren't compatible, that he needed to focus on business. Tears began to stream down Camilla's face. I was devastated. It took me years to recover, and now I see photos of him with you, I read articles about how he's in love, and I can't believe it. "Why are you telling me this?" Helena asked, although part of her didn't want to hear the answer. "Because he's doing the same thing with you that he did with me. He courted you intensely, made you feel special, introduced you to his life, and when the family and business pressure gets too strong, he'll discard you. It's his pattern, Helena. He can't choose his heart over the empire. And I don't want you to suffer what I suffered." Helena sat in silence, processing. Part of her wanted to shout that Raphael had changed, that what they had was different. But another part, that insecure part that always wondered why he had never noticed her before, began to doubt. "Does he love you?" Camilla asked directly. "He says he does. He told me too, and it was a lie. Or maybe it was true at that moment, but it wasn't strong enough to withstand the pressure." Camilla wiped away her tears. "I'm just warning you. Protect your heart. Because the Albuquerque family always comes first for him." Helena left that meeting with her mind in a whirlwind. Did Raphael really have a pattern? Was she just repeating a cycle that had already happened before? Or was Camilla distorting the truth, perhaps out of jealousy or resentment? When she arrived at the Japanese restaurant at 8, Raphael was already there waiting. He stood up when he saw her, and the smile on his face was genuine, full of relief at seeing her. But Helena couldn't smile back. "What is it?" he asked immediately, reading her expression. Helena sat down. "I met someone today, Camila Ferreira." The change in Raphael was instantaneous. He went pale, his hands clenching into fists on the table. "She reached out to you?" "She did, and she told me about your relationship, about how you ended it when the pressure got too strong." Raphael closed his eyes. "It's true that we dated, and it's true that I ended it, but it wasn't the way she told it." "Then how was it?" He opened his eyes and faced her directly. "Camilla and I met at a business event. She worked at a consulting firm. She was intelligent, beautiful, successful. We started going out, and for a while it was good. But as the relationship progressed, I realized we were together for the wrong reasons. She liked the status, the social position, the opportunities my surname provided, and I was with her because it was expected of me, because my family approved, because it made sense on paper." "And you didn't love her?" "I thought I did, but it was a controlled, safe version of love. It wasn't consuming. It didn't challenge me, didn't transform me. When I ended it, I did so because I realized it would be unfair to her and to myself to continue something that wasn't real. And with me it's different?" Raphael took her hands over the table. "With you, everything is different. You wake me up in the middle of the night wielding a candelabra. You confront me when you think I'm wrong. You have your own dreams that don't include my money or my status. You love me for who I am, not for what I possess. It's terrifying, it's intense, it's too real. And yes, the pressure exists. My family questions, the company demands, people judge. But this time, Helena, this time I choose you, regardless of the cost." Helena wanted to believe. She desperately wanted to believe. But the meeting with Camilla had planted a seed of doubt she couldn't completely ignore. "Prove it," she said. "Prove it's different."
How?
"I don't know, but I need more than words, Raphael. I need to know that when the decisive moment comes, when you really have to choose, you'll choose me." Raphael let go of her hands and stood up. For a terrible moment, Helena thought he was leaving, but then he knelt beside her chair, there in the middle of the restaurant, with other customers looking on curiously. "Helena Mendez," he said, his voice low but firm. "I don't have a ring right now. I haven't prepared an elaborate speech, but I swear by everything I am, by everything I've built, and by everything I'm still going to build, that you are the choice of my life. Not because it's convenient or because society approves, but because you make me want to be better. You make me feel alive in a way I've never felt before. And yes, it's going to be hard. We're going to face obstacles, criticism, pressures, but I'll face all of that at your side if you'll let me." Helena felt tears burn in her eyes. "Get up, you're making a scene." He smiled. "Good. I want everyone to see. I want the whole world to know I chose you." And he kissed her there in front of everyone, while some customers applauded and others just watched. It was a public declaration, a commitment made before witnesses. It wasn't a formal marriage proposal, but it was a promise. And in a way, it meant more. When they finally pulled apart, Helena said, "We're going to have to face your family for real. Augusto, your father, everyone who thinks I'm not suitable. Then we'll face them together. And the company, the people who say I'm distracting you. I'll prove them wrong. That I can have you and be the best CEO this company has ever had. In fact, I'll be better because I have you by my side." Helena wanted to believe it would be that simple, but she knew it wouldn't be. Life rarely was. But for the first time since Camilla had planted those doubts, she felt hope reborn. Because Raphael was willing to fight. And so was she. What neither of them knew was that the real fight was only beginning. Because there were forces working against them, people who didn't want to see Raphael happy if it meant losing control over him. And those forces were about to show exactly how far they were willing to go to separate them. The bomb exploded 2 weeks later, during an extraordinary meeting of the board of shareholders of the Albuquerque Group. Raphael was presenting an ambitious sustainable expansion project, a plan he had been developing for months to diversify the family businesses beyond ethanol and sugarcane, investing in solar energy and reforestation projects. It was visionary, risky, but potentially revolutionary for the sector. Helena was in the audience, invited by him to watch. It was the first time she had seen Raphael in action in the corporate environment, and she was impressed by the way he commanded the room, how he articulated complex ideas with clarity and passion. But then Augusto stood up. "I would like to make a motion," he announced, his voice echoing through the conference room. "I propose that Raphael be temporarily removed from the position of CEO until he resolves certain personal issues that are compromising his judgment and the reputation of the company." The silence that followed was sepulchral. Raphael stood motionless on the stage, looking at his brother with an expression Helena couldn't decipher. Shock? Anger? Betrayal? "On what basis?" Raphael asked, his voice dangerously calm. Augusto opened a folder and began to distribute documents. "In recent weeks, our main business partners have expressed concerns. There are questions about your ability to maintain focus, about the influence of personal relationships on strategic decisions. This expansion project, for example." He pointed to the screens behind Raphael. "It's too risky, too far from our core business. Some believe you are trying to impress certain people instead of making rational business decisions." Helena felt her stomach churn. Was he implying Raphael was doing this for her? That the sustainability project was an attempt to please her? "This is absurd," Raphael retorted. "I've been developing this project since before I met Helena. It has zero to do with her and everything to do with the future of the group." "Perhaps," Augusto conceded. "But perception matters. And the perception, especially after that magazine article and the increasingly frequent public appearances with Miss Mendez, is that you are emotionally compromised in a way that affects your professional judgment." Raphael stepped down from the stage, walking slowly toward his brother. "You're doing this out of jealousy because Dad chose me instead of you, because you can't accept that I can be successful being different from what he was." I'm doing this for the good of the company, for the family. Augusto didn't back down. And if you really care about the legacy our father built, you will accept a temporary removal, resolve your personal affairs, get married, or end it once and for all, but take this distraction out of the equation. Then you can come back with a clear head. You want me to break up with Helena as a condition for keeping my job? Raphael asked, incredulous. Not necessarily break up, but perhaps prioritize, make it clear that the company comes first always. Helena couldn't stay seated any longer. She stood up and all eyes in the room turned to her. May I speak? Helena, no, Raphael began, but she ignored him. Mr. Augusto, she said, walking to the center of the room, you are right about one thing. Perception matters. And the perception I have now is that this motion has nothing to do with Raphael's performance and everything to do with control. You want power, and you are using our relationship as an excuse to get him out of the way. Miss Mendez, with all due respect, this does not concern you, Augusto replied coldly. It does concern me, yes, because they are using my name, my presence in Raphael's life, as a weapon against him. Helena turned to the other board members. You've known Raphael for years. You know the exceptional work he's been doing. The results speak for themselves. The company has grown 23% in the last 3 years under his leadership. He modernized processes, improved labor relations, opened new markets. And now you want to remove him because he's in a serious relationship? This isn't about business, it's personal. One of the older board members, Dr. Mendonça, spoke up. The young lady has a point. Raphael has been exemplary in his management. Perhaps we are being hasty. But another board member, a known ally of Augusto, disagreed. The issue is not just past performance, but future risks, and we cannot ignore that relationships can compromise decisions. The discussion heated up. Helena realized there was a clear division on the board. Half supported Raphael unconditionally, the other half had doubts. And Augusto was using those doubts to create a crisis. That was when the door to the room opened and Miguel Albuquerque walked in. The family patriarch, who was supposedly retired, walked with his mahogany cane, his posture still imposing at 72. Everyone fell silent instantly. Dad, Augusto said, surprised. I didn't know you were coming. Clearly, Miguel looked around the room with eyes that didn't forgive mistakes. Does someone want to explain to me what is happening here? Augusto tried to summarize the situation, but Miguel interrupted him with a wave of his hand. Then he looked at Raphael. Do you love this woman? Raphael didn't hesitate. I do. And are you willing to give up command of the company for her? There was a heavy silence. Helena held her breath. This was the choice Camila had warned about. The moment Raphael would have to decide between the empire and his heart. I won't need to choose, Raphael said finally, because I'll prove I can have both. But if I am forced to choose, if it really is this or her, then... He looked at Helena, and what she saw in those eyes made her tremble. Then I choose her. I will always choose her. The shock went through the room. Miguel was silent for a long moment, studying his son. Then he turned to Augusto. Are you attempting a coup? It's not a coup, Dad. It's protection of the family legacy. Nonsense. Miguel struck his cane on the floor. You're envious. You always were. I chose Raphael because he has vision, courage, the ability to innovate. You are competent, Augusto, but you are too conservative. You don't have what it takes to lead this company into the future. Dad! Don't interrupt me. Miguel walked until he was face to face with Raphael. You said you choose her, even knowing it might cost what we built. Dad, she isn't the problem. She never was. She's the solution. She makes me better. She challenges me to be more than just the heir. And if I can't keep the company while being who I really am, then maybe I shouldn't be here anyway. Miguel looked at Helena then, really looked for the first time. And you? Are you willing to endure all of this? The pressure, the judgments, the sacrifices? Helena took a step forward. Mr. Albuquerque, I didn't come from a family like yours. I don't have experience with empires or corporate boards, but I know what loyalty is. I know what it is to fight for those we love. And I love your son. Not for the surname, not for the money, but for who he is when he's away from all of that. And if you can't see his value beyond what he represents for the company, then the problem isn't my relationship with him. It's yours. The silence that followed was absolute. And then, surprisingly, Miguel laughed. It was a short, harsh laugh, but genuine. "You have courage, girl, I'll give you that." He looked at the board. "Augusto's motion is rejected. Rafael continues as CEO. And as for you," he turned to Augusto, "you will learn to accept that some decisions are not yours to make, or find somewhere else to work." Augusto went pale. "Dad, you're not serious." "I am completely serious. I am tired of power games within the family itself. Rafael has my total support, and if anyone else wants to question that, speak now." No one spoke. The meeting was adjourned quickly after that. The board members left in silence, some greeting Rafael with nods of support, others simply avoiding eye contact. Augusto left without looking at anyone, and Helena could feel the anger emanating from him. When they were finally alone, Rafael pulled her into a tight hug. "You are incredible," he murmured. "What you said there." It was the truth. Helena pulled back slightly to look him in the eye. "But Rafael, this isn't over. Augusto won't give up, and there are people on the board who agree with him." "I know." Rafael ran his hand through his hair, visibly exhausted. "But at least now it's clear. I chose you publicly. There's no going back." "And do you regret it?" "Not at all." He kissed her forehead. "I'm just worried about what comes next." What came next was worse than anyone could have imagined. The next morning, Helena woke up to dozens of messages on her cell phone. A new article had been published, this time in a social gossip newspaper. The title was devastating. "Penniless architect manipulates billionaire heir. Albuquerque family in crisis." The article came with old photos of Helena, including some from college when she worked as a waitress to help pay the bills. There were insinuations that she had planned the meeting with Rafael, that everything was a calculated trap to gain access to the family fortune. It mentioned the candelabra incident as if it were a farce, an act to get attention. Helena read everything with her hands shaking. It wasn't just defamatory, it was cruel. It attacked her integrity, her family, her career. It painted her as an unscrupulous opportunist. The phone rang. It was Rafael, having already seen the article. "Helena, don't believe any of that. I'm going to sue the newspaper. I'm going to find out who leaked this information." "It's Augusto," Helena interrupted, her voice surprisingly calm. "He's trying to destroy me to take you out of the game." "Then we'll fight. We'll deny everything. We'll—" "Rafael." Helena closed her eyes. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I really am causing more trouble than I'm worth." "Don't say that. Never say that. Your family is falling apart. Your position in the company is threatened. And all of this because I entered your life. No. All of this because there are people who prefer control over happiness. People who can't accept that I can be successful being different from what they expect." His voice was firm, decided. "Helena, if you leave me now, they win. That's exactly what they want. To separate us so I go back to being the controllable heir they knew." Helena knew he was right. But the weight of everything was overwhelming. It wasn't just the article. It was the judging looks, the malicious comments on social media, the constant feeling of being under scrutiny. It was knowing that every move of hers would be interpreted, dissected, used against Rafael. "I need time," she said finally. "I need to think, process all of this." "How much time?" "I don't know, but I promise I'll give you an answer. A definitive answer. Either we get into this fight together until the end, or—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Or you leave me," Rafael completed, his voice heavy with pain. "All right, I'll give you the time you need, but Helena, know that my answer won't change. I choose you. I will always choose you." When she hung up, Helena allowed herself to finally cry. She cried for the injustice of it all, for the malice of people, for the complication of a love that should be simple. But mostly she cried because she knew the decision she had to make was the hardest of her life, and that regardless of what she chose, someone would get hurt. Helena spent 3 days locked in her apartment, ignoring calls, messages, even the doorbell when her parents went to visit her. She needed to be alone, to think, to feel, to understand what she really wanted. It wasn't enough to love Rafael. Love alone wasn't enough when there were so many forces working against them. She needed to know if she was willing to fight, if she had the strength for it, if what they felt for each other was worth all the price they would have to pay. On the morning of the 4th day, She woke up with a clearer mind. She took a long shower, dressed carefully, and finally read all the messages she had ignored. There were dozens from Raphael, each more desperate than the last, begging for them to talk. There were messages of support from friends, from colleagues, but there was one in particular that made her stop. It was from Donna Beatriz, Raphael's mother. "Helena, I need to talk to you. It's important. Please meet me at the address below today at 3 in the afternoon." Helena looked at the clock. It was 2:15. She had time. And curiously, she didn't feel fear. She felt she needed to have that conversation, face the Albuquerque family matriarch, and finally understand where she was standing. The address was for an elegant cafe in Itaim. When Helena arrived, Beatrice was already there, sitting at a discreet table in the back. There were no security guards, assistants, or any pomp. It was just a woman waiting. "Thank you for coming," Beatrice said when Helena sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either," Helena admitted. "But I decided that if I'm going to make a decision about Raphael, I need all the information first." Beatrice nodded, serving tea for both. "I read the article. It was cruel and unfair. I've already hired lawyers to sue the newspaper, and we are tracking the source of the leak." "It was Augusto." "Probably, although we don't have proof yet." Beatrice took a sip of tea. "My eldest son was always complicated, brilliant, but insecure. And insecurity makes him dangerous." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know what you're getting into. If you choose to stay with Raphael, you will face this for the rest of your life. Not just Augusto, but other people too. There are those who don't like to see the established order being challenged. And you, dear, challenge everything." "I'm not trying to challenge anything. I just want to be with him." "I know, and that is exactly why you challenge." Beatrice leaned slightly forward. "Helena, I'm going to be honest with you. When Raphael brought you to meet the family, I had my reservations. Not because you weren't suitable, but because you were different. You didn't come from our world, you didn't understand our rules, and I feared you wouldn't be able to handle the pressure. And now I saw you face the board of directors with more courage than many experienced businessmen would have. I saw you defend my son, even knowing you would be attacked for it, and I realized I was measuring you by the wrong standards. You don't need to understand our world. You only need to be strong enough not to let it destroy you, and you are." Helena felt tears burn in her eyes. "Donna Beatriz, let me finish." The woman held her hand over the table. "Raphael was never happy, not truly, until he met you. He always fulfilled all expectations, was the perfect son, the model heir. But he was empty. I saw that, and didn't know how to fix it. And then you appeared in a nightgown and candelabra and woke my son from a sleep he didn't even know he was in." Helena laughed despite the tears. "I'm never going to be able to forget that damn candelabra." "Nor should you. It was the moment that changed everything." Beatrice squeezed her hand. "What I'm trying to say is that you have my blessing, completely. And more than that, you have my support. If you choose to stay, I will fight at your side. I will teach you how to navigate this world, how to deal with the snakes and the power games. It won't be easy, but you won't be alone." "And Miguel, Raphael's father?" "My husband is a difficult man, but he is fair. He saw in you what I saw: strength, authenticity, loyalty. These are qualities he values above all. You already have his respect, even if he hasn't said it explicitly." Helena took a deep breath. "And if I'm not strong enough? And if all this pressure breaks me? Then Raphael will hold you, just as you hold him. That's what partners do. It's not about being strong alone, it's about being strong together." Leaving that meeting, Helena finally knew what she needed to do. It wasn't about choosing between her and Raphael, or between Raphael and the company. It was about choosing to fight, together, against everything and everyone who tried to separate them. She went straight to his office. The secretary tried to warn her that he was in a meeting, but Helena simply walked past her and opened the door to Raphael's office. He was on a video conference, but when he saw her, he immediately ended the call and stood up. "Helena, I've just made a decision," she said, closing the door behind her, "and you're going to listen." Raphael just nodded, waiting. "I'm staying. I'm going to fight. I'm going to face Augusto, the newspapers, anyone who tries to separate us. But on one condition." "What?" "You marry me, now. Not 6 months from now, not after things calm down, now. Because if we're going to do this, we're doing it for real. No more games, no more doubts. I am yours and you are mine, and everyone is going to have to accept that. Raphael was in shock for a moment. Then the most beautiful smile she had ever seen spread across his face. Are you asking me to marry you? I am, and I hope you answer quickly because I've just done the craziest thing of my life and I need to know if you're with me or not. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and picked her up in his arms, spinning her in the air while laughing. Yes, 1,000 times yes, 10,000 times yes. When he put her on the ground again, he kissed her with an intensity that made the world around them disappear. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. You said now, Raphael murmured. Do you mean like today? I mean this week. Small, intimate, just immediate family and true friends. No big social event, just us promising in front of those who matter that we'll face everything together. Perfect. He picked up the phone. Cancel everything I have for the next 3 days, he said to the secretary, and find the best wedding planner in Sao Paulo. We have a wedding to organize. The following 3 days were a whirlwind. Helena and Raphael decided to get married at Santa Helena Farm, exactly where everything had begun. Only 40 guests, including immediate family and closest friends. Donna Beatriz took over the organization with military efficiency, transforming the garden into a dream setting in record time. Marcia, Helena's mother, cried with emotion and helped her daughter choose a simple but beautiful dress of white lace that enhanced her natural beauty. Augusto was not invited. It was a difficult but necessary decision. Raphael made it clear to his brother that until he could accept the marriage and stop the sabotage attempts, he would not be welcome. Miguel supported the decision, saying Augusto needed to learn that actions had consequences. On the afternoon of the ceremony, Helena was in the same room where she had slept on that fateful New Year's Eve. She looked at herself in the mirror, seeing the woman she had become. She was no longer the girl who watched Raphael from afar, nurturing an impossible love in silence. She was a woman who had fought for what she wanted, who had faced one of the most powerful families in Brazil and come out victorious, not because she had won a battle, but because she had earned their respect by being authentically herself. Ready? Marcia asked, adjusting the veil. More than ever. The ceremony was held at sunset, under an arch of white flowers in the garden. Raphael waited at the altar, wearing a navy blue suit, his eyes fixed on the path where Helena would walk. When the music started and she appeared, walking beside her father, Raphael felt his eyes well up. She was absolutely stunning, but more than that, she was radiant, happy, whole. When Helena reached the altar, and Fernando placed her hand in Raphael's, her father whispered to his son-in-law, "Take care of her, or you'll have to answer to me." "I will take care of her with my life," Raphael promised. The ceremony was simple but deeply moving. When it came time for the vows, both had written their own. Raphael went first. "Helena, you entered my life like a hurricane. You woke me from a sleep I didn't even know I was in. You challenged me in ways no one ever had the courage to do, and you showed me what it is to truly love. Not convenient love, not calculated love, but the love that transforms you, that scares you, that makes you want to be better. I promise to spend the rest of my life defending you, supporting you, loving you with the same intensity that you love me. I promise never to choose power over you, never to choose convenience over us. I choose you today and always." Helena wiped the tears from her face before starting. "Raphael, for 5 years I watched you from afar, thinking I would never be seen, and when I was finally seen it was in the most ridiculous way possible. But that moment of humiliation became the greatest gift of my life, because it taught me that vulnerability is not weakness, that authenticity is not shame, and that true love happens when we stop trying to be perfect and start being real. I promise never to stop challenging you, never to stop being honest even when the truth is difficult. I promise to fight at your side against whoever or whatever tries to separate us. And I promise to love you not despite the difficulties, but through them." When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the kiss they shared was enthusiastically applauded by the guests. But for Helena and Raphael, the world around them had disappeared. There were only the two of them, finally united in an official way, finally able to face the future as a team. The party that followed was small but joyful. Miguel made an emotional toast, saying he finally saw real happiness in his son's eyes. Beatriz hugged Helena with tears in her eyes, whispering, "Welcome to the family," in a way that sounded like truth. Even some of the board members who had been skeptical about the relationship attended, recognizing the strength of the union. Late at night, when most of the guests had already left, Helena and Raphael went up to the room they now shared as husband and wife. She sat on the bed, taking off her shoes, and smiling when she remembered the last time she had been there. "Thinking about something specific?" Raphael asked, taking off his jacket. "Thinking about how everything changed, from that night until now." He sat next to her, taking her hand. "Any regrets?" "Not one. And you?" "Only that I didn't notice you sooner, that I wasted so much time observing what society expected, instead of looking at what my heart wanted. But we found our way in the end." "We did." He pulled her into a soft kiss. "And now we have the rest of our lives to build our story." The months that followed were not easy. Augusto continued trying to create problems, but with less success now that Helena was officially part of the family. The press eventually lost interest when they realized there was no drama to exploit, only a genuinely in-love couple building a life together. Raphael proved to the skeptics that he could be an exceptional CEO and a dedicated husband, that the two things were not mutually exclusive. The Sustainable Expansion Project was approved and began to bear fruit, positioning the Albuquerque Group as a leader in innovation in the sector. Helena continued working as an architect, but now with the full support of Raphael and the family. She started a parallel social housing project using resources from the Albuquerque Foundation to build affordable homes in underprivileged communities. It was her way of honoring where she came from, of never forgetting that privilege came with responsibility. A year after the wedding, on another New Year's Eve at Santa Helena Farm, Helena and Raphael walked through the gardens, watching the preparations for the party that would happen that night. Her belly was already beginning to grow, evidence of a new life that was arriving. A girl they had recently discovered. "What are you thinking about?" Raphael asked, hugging her from behind. "Thinking about how funny destiny is. A year ago I came to this party, decided to forget you, and look where we are now. Married, expecting our first daughter, building a life that neither of us imagined possible. Do you think she's going to have my tendency to do crazy things?" Raphael laughed. "I hope so. It was a crazy thing of yours that won me over after all." Helena turned in his arms. "Promise we're going to tell her the true story, without editing out the embarrassing parts. Every embarrassing detail, including the candelabra." "Especially the candelabra," Helena corrected, laughing. They stayed there, embraced under the stars while the sound of the party began to rise in the house. This time they weren't just guests. They were hosts, owners of that moment, authors of their own story. A story that had started with humiliation and ended in love. A story of courage, of authenticity, of two people who chose truth instead of convenience, and found in that choice a happiness that no fortune could buy. When midnight arrived and the fireworks exploded over the farm fields, Helena and Raphael kissed, surrounded by family and friends who genuinely celebrated their love. And in that moment, Helena understood that all the challenges, all the battles, all the suffering had been worth it. Because she hadn't just won the man she loved, she had won herself, the courage to be authentic, the strength to fight for what she believed in, the wisdom of knowing that true love was not about perfection, but about choosing each other every day in all circumstances. Raphael looked at her, his eyes shining in the light of the fireworks, and whispered, "Happy New Year, my candelabra girl." Helena laughed, happy. "Happy New Year, my modern count." And so, under a sky lit with promises, they entered a new cycle. Not as the heir and the architect, not as the powerful and the humble, but as partners, lovers, best friends, as two people who had found, in the middle of the chaos and pressure of a world that tried to separate them, something rare and precious, a love that had not only survived the storms, but had grown stronger because of them. And that, in the end, was the most beautiful story of all. Not the one of silent passion that never found an answer, but the one of courage that transformed humiliation into triumph, confrontation into connection,